A lot of people have genuine problems and things to say about the world, whereas I honestly just want to talk about farts and stuff. So, and I think there's room for that in comedy. You know, there's certainly now, I think the accepted truth is that the best comedy is honest, raw, and revealing comedy. But that was never the truth when I started doing it. There was room for everything. So I think I'm flying the flag for farts, I think.
Hi, I'm Zach Newmark, and this is Dam Yankee. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts for all the best interviews with the coolest performers based here in the Netherlands and those traveling through the country, like British comedy superstar Ed Gamble. You probably know him from literally dozens of appearances on British television, including panel shows like Mock the Week, but also his own special Blood Sugar from Amazon Prime and his book Glutton. If you don't know those, maybe you know his podcast Off Menu with James Acaster. It's a superb foodie podcast and it's very funny, and we're very lucky to have him with us right now. Ed Gamble, thank you so much for joining us. You've got a couple of shows coming up right here in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam and Rotterdam.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Are you going to add some more shows to this tour? It's your first international tour, right?
It is my first. It's my first European tour, certainly. So, yeah, I mean, we keep adding shows to some places, and they do keep selling out. So, you know, maybe we'll add some more this time, but I feel like we're getting a bit close to add shows. So I think I'll just come back sooner. I think this has been a little experiment to see if anyone in the Netherlands wants to come and see me, and apparently they do. So I feel like I'll make it a regular stop on the tours now.
Is there a reason why you picked Amsterdam and Rotterdam and added those to your tour? I know some of your colleagues have been here recently. I
mean, I wish I could say I sat down with a big world map and really spent time picking over the places I should go. I think I'm going in other people's wakes. So, you know, if comedians have gone there, if British comedians have gone there and have done well and have sold tickets, I've thought, hey, why not give that a go? So, and it feels like Amsterdam and Rotterdam are the places to go when you first visit the Netherlands, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, Rotterdam is great. The comedy club that's there, Club Haug, is a nice venue. Boom Chicago here in Amsterdam, also a great venue. You know, they're good spots for comedy, both of them.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can't wait. I've performed once in Amsterdam before. I can't remember the name of the place, but it's a famous comedy club, so I should remember the name of it. And I had a lovely time. I did. I mean, just getting used to the Dutch sensibility in the audience was a lot of fun as well. A man sat in the front row, and I tried to talk to him and have a chat, and he said, "Oh, I don't want to talk to you," but in such a sort of friendly way. Like it wasn't aggressive. It was just simple. I don't want to talk to you. And I said, well, why'd you sit in the front? And he said, well, it was the only seat available. And that was the end. And that was the end of that conversation. So I feel like I've had a little taste of what it might be like. And I probably won't do much chat with people in the audience.
Do you have a feel for the stereotype about Dutch audiences that they're, you know, sometimes more subdued or reserved or even just dead silent?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a little bit of what I experienced. And I think I'm going in there armed with that knowledge now, so I don't have a full meltdown when it happens. But you're always told as a comic, they are enjoying it. They're having a great time, but they're just not necessarily as rambunctious and as rowdy as UK audiences. But, you know, I think we'll be fine. We're going to have a good time. I mean, look, they're coming, so they must be excited for it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And you're doing this international tour both in Europe, but then later on in the US as well.
Yeah.
How do you adapt your set for the local audiences?
Well, I mean, what I'm trying to do with this tour is at least get to spend a bit of time in the place before I do the show. Because in the UK, there's a lot of arriving at 5 o'clock, setting the show up, doing the show, leaving the town, which means you don't really have much of a chance to do anything sort of local based or any experience of being in that place. But what's lovely about this European tour and then hopefully the American tour is we are getting to places early. We're going to enjoy the place. We're going to we're going to explore a little bit. So I'll actually have some stuff to talk about. And of course, there's things like there's references in the show and the things that feel particularly British, which will have to be switched around day to day. But I'm looking forward to that. It keeps you on your toes.
Are you writing material about Amsterdam or about Rotterdam in advance, do you think?
Not in advance. I think I'll have to be on site to come up with anything like that. But also, I don't want it to turn into... You sometimes see comics visit the UK and then it's all about the UK and it's all about things they've seen and stuff like that. And you're like, well, I've seen all that. I just want to see the show. You know, you've written this show. It's exciting that you've come to our country. So just give us the good stuff. So I'll be giving you plenty of the good stuff over there.
All right. Something that I really wanted to ask you about and wanted to talk to you about is really your love of food and this interest in food, but also, it's something so unusual for a touring comic, or touring performers in general are kind of known as being, snack bar visitors, whatever you can jam in your face at 2:00 in the morning. I'm from Chicago originally, which is, maybe the best junk food city in the world. So how is it that you've kind of developed this sort of, elite taste for food and not just, the junk food?
Well, I would say when I'm touring the UK, I'm not necessarily delving into the elite tastes, but when I'm not touring, I live in London, and obviously it's an amazing restaurant scene here, and I really got into it. I mean, I've spoken about it in the past, but I used to be bigger than I am now, but that was through sort of like not really thinking about what I was eating. It was a lot of just shoving stuff into my face, and then I think when I started to get on top of what I ate and thinking about what I ate, rather than suddenly go super healthy, what I did was choose all of the stuff that I'm excited to eat and really get into food and really sort of immerse myself in that culture. And that's proved to have worked. And the great thing about touring Europe is there's so many places I want to go. There's so many things I want to taste, especially in Amsterdam. On the Off Menu podcast, James is obsessed with a restaurant in Amsterdam where he had what he claims to be the best beef Wellington he's ever had. So I'm going to have to visit that place.
Any idea what the name of that is off the top of your head?
It's called Ron's Gastro Bar, I believe.
Oh, right. Yeah.
He's obsessed with it.
Ron Blau.
So I'm going to have to go.
Yeah. Are there other places here that you were kind of planning on checking out?
What I'm waiting for is the day before I go to the places. And then I think I'll put up an Instagram story and get as many recommendations for places. I mean, of course, Zach, if you have anything you want to shout out now and get in the recommendations early, I'd love to hear it.
I'm just saying, Marcus behind me is a big proponent of Nia, which is consistently ranked as one of the best pizza restaurants in the world.
Amazing.
That's actually near the venue where you're performing. I know you're a big pizza fan.
Yes, absolutely.
But it's there. It might be an option for you. But, we have a number of Michelin star places too, but also you strike me as the kind of guy who doesn't just go for the Michelin star places, certainly.
Totally, yeah. I mean, what I'm quite looking forward to about being in Europe in general, but I feel like this is an Amsterdam vibe, is in the UK, if you want to get something good to eat after a show, it's really hard because everything shuts really early. But I'm feeling like Amsterdam, they might stay open a little late. Would I be correct in saying that?
I think you're going to have to turn to snack bars for the late stuff.
Well, I'm not against that. I'll go and I'll head in and get a bitter ballin'. Is that what we're saying?
It is.
Yes.
It is.
I'm going to get some of that stuff. Yeah.
But what people people here might not know, people in the UK probably know, is also that you're someone who has type 1 diabetes.
Yes.
Someone who's had to deal with that, but you've also described, managing that as basically like another full-time job.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's something that's constantly in the background of your mind. I mean, that's the hardest thing about being type 1 is if you let it come to the forefront of your mind, you will never stop thinking about it because it's impossible to achieve perfection. It's just, it can be different every day. It can be different every couple of hours. So it does feel like another full-time job, but the mental game is making it sort of hum in the background. But yeah, I mean, certainly I try and stay semi-regimented when I'm at home, especially with what I eat, because eating different things can affect your blood glucose levels in different ways. But I feel like I'm going to be like an absolute diabetic ninja when I'm on tour in Europe. I'm going to have to be across it because I'm not letting all of these new food experiences go.
You've described food very much like an obsession, and you've taken other hobbies and other aspects of your life almost to these same obsessive levels. Is your management of your diabetes also one of those things that is kind of triggering in that obsessive sort of way?
It was for a long time, but the problem with that as an obsession is whilst it impacts my overall health and sort of longevity of life, there's nothing really fun at the end of it, of being obsessed with it. Like it doesn't bring, I was obsessed with sneakers for a long time, and then you get a lovely pair of sneakers. I was obsessed with comedy. I've got a job out of it. I was obsessed with food. You get a lovely meal. Type 1 diabetes, there's no real fun reward at the end of it. So it's probably not the same sort of obsession.
I mean, avoiding amputation is...
Sure. But would you call that fun? I mean, isn't this fun? I'm not having my leg amputated. I don't think that's a laugh, is it? Also, it really ruins the sneaker obsession.
Right. Okay, so I guess it is a laugh, maybe. But one of those things, because you mentioned the sneakers, you also had this kind of obsession with running for a while.
Yes. Yeah.
And training, where you almost described it in a way that I hear other people talk about their relation to spirituality or their relation to meditation, for example. And then, you kind of talked about it as a way of just shutting off all the noise.
Yeah.
But then at one point you were just done.
Yeah. That happens a lot with me. Honestly, it happens a lot. And now I spot the things when they start to happen. So I got obsessed with, and don't laugh, Zach, I got obsessed with professional wrestling recently. But as I was going down a YouTube hole, and a lot of this is YouTube's fault, I think, these obsessions. As I was going down a YouTube hole, I felt myself being like, here we go, this is another one. And
now, are we talking like current professional wrestling or like old school professional wrestling?
All of it.
All
of it. And this is the problem with YouTube. You click on a video about what's happening in WWE at the moment, and then you're watching a compilation of things that happened in the 80s. So I'm currently still sort of obsessed with that, but I think we're approaching, it's normally about 2 years is the switch off point. But I've fully immersed myself in that world. I wrestled in a professional wrestling match recently. So yeah.
Is this an ironic obsession? Like a millennial irony thing?
No, I don't think so. I think any sort of obsession with professional wrestling, there has to be a hint of irony because it's so silly. And I understand it's silly, but I genuinely love it as a performance art and as an athletic thing. And it's very camp and it's very over the top. And I think that it just really plays into everything I like.
What I'm still wondering, though, is if there's something else that's kind of replaced running as that sort of turning off all the noise outside or turning off everything around you.
Oh yeah, I mean, I do CrossFit maybe 3 or 4 times a week when I can. Mm-hmm. So there's running involved in that, but it's just all sorts of different things. And there's again skills in that I think I'll never be able to learn, but I like giving it a go. And it does turn off the noise to an extent. Like it's pretty sort of furious, intense exercise, and it turns off one noise, and then the other noise in your head is just, why are you doing this? Why would you do this to your body? You're nearly 40. Please stop it. Your joints are hurting. But I love it.
When was it in your life that you kind of started to pick up on the signals and the signs that you were, really going way too far down the rabbit hole with certain things?
Only recently, I think my wife said something to me. She was like, well, here's another obsession, isn't it? But she's even worse. That's the problem. We live in an echo chamber where suddenly, she's playing in bands now. She never used to play music, and suddenly she's in 3 bands. She trains as a professional wrestler 3 times a week. So this is the problem. You can never pick up on your obsessions if your wife is also involved.
Wait, so okay, you've got to.
I live a very weird life, Zach. Everyone is blown away by how weird my life is. This is what happens if you don't have kids. You start living like a child in your own house.
I don't even know where to go because your wife, Charlie, Your wife, Charlie, who is a TV producer
Yes.
and a musician.
Yeah, I'm professional wrestler.
And apparently a professional wrestler.
Yeah.
Where did her foray into professional wrestling come before your foray into professional wrestling?
Kind of. I mean, look, I was obsessed with wrestling when I was 13, 14. So like the Attitude Era of WWE, which is the one everyone will know. So it's like The Rock, Stone Cold, Triple H, all of that sort of era. And then I decided I was probably a bit grown up for it or whatever. It turns out no, because when I was 37, 38, I got back into it in a big way. But she'd started watching professional wrestling because it plays into what she likes, because she likes kitschy camp stuff and, over the top acting and things like that. So it's more me walking into the sitting room and sort of looking over her shoulder and being like, oh yeah, I used to watch this sort of stuff. And then 2 weeks later, I'm in. And then... Yeah, go on.
I think our age gap here shows, because you're describing the Rock era as being the era of professional wrestling that everyone knows. But for me, it's like Hulk Hogan,
sure,
Macho Man, Randy Savage. That's the era for me, right?
Yeah, no, that is the other one. Yeah, sure. I mean, that was the big sort of boom time for the initial WWF stuff. But yeah, for me, for people my age, 38, 39, that's we were teenagers when The Rock and Stone Cold were around. So that's our thing.
Yeah, about a year ago, my son, who is now 11, started waking me up from naps by running across the room, shouting out the words John Cena, and then doing a flying elbow drop on my gut.
Yeah. That's the problem. That's why they used to say, don't try this at home,
It's true. My finishing move when I was 8 years old was called the penis pounder. And I would climb up to the back of an armchair and I would do a flying hammer drop with my fist onto my dad. That was kind of the end of our wrestling matches for a while.
Yeah, well, that's also illegal within a wrestling match. If the ref spots that, you'll be disqualified if you do the penis pounder.
I know, but the ref never spots it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's the beauty of professional wrestling.
Oh, the refs are so stupid. They never spot anything.
When you did professional wrestling, did you have a gimmick?
Yes, so we did a show. So there's a comedy double act called Max in a Van, and Max used to be a professional wrestler when he was a teenager, called Max Voltage. So they put on these shows. It used to be called The Wrestling, but now it's called Clash of the Comics, where they get comedians in, train them up as wrestlers, and then you wrestle with or against professional wrestlers. And they gave me the gimmick of Ed the Gambler Gamble. So I'm essentially a gambling addict is the gimmick. But we did a match, we did a whole night a few weeks ago at the Hammersmith Apollo, which sold out. So it's 3,500 people. And it's the first time they've ever had a comedian versus comedian match. And it was me versus Phil Kill Wang. And yeah, in front of 3,500 people, two men who do not professionally wrestle, having a professional wrestling match. But it's probably the biggest buzz I've ever got out of any performance of my life.
No kidding.
It was insane, because there's that worry that you're not going to do it right. And we spent a long time training, but comedy now is just, I love doing it and it still gives me a buzz, and it's so exciting writing a joke and then doing that joke to other people and they think it's funny as well. But it's not as much of a buzz as being superplexed off the top rope.
What was the training regimen like to actually prepare for this?
Well, it's very different to how professional wrestlers prepare for matches, because they're obviously so drilled in the basics and they do it so often that I think when they get to matches, they'll literally on the day be like, hi, we're doing a match. I want to do this. You should do this. And they come up with the spots, the big moments, and then everything else in between is almost sort of improvised. Like they can talk themselves through it and they can do this incredible looking match just off the cuff. Whereas me and Phil needed weeks and weeks to have a full match choreographed like a dance, and then had to learn it. And I was, muttering to myself on the tube, like going, and then I go over there, and then he goes over there, and then I punch him. Like it was proper to the letter. Exactly, we knew what was going to happen, because we can't be improvising, because one of us would end up with a broken neck.
I mean, it's quite a different style of performance also for you, because, fans of yours will know that you've done, I think, 36 appearances on Mock the Week.
Yes.
You've been on basically every British comedy panel show that there is. Watching you on Great British Menu, you come off very spontaneous and very off the cuff. And I think also from your radio show and your podcast, people kind of know you that way. So the idea of you going then to something that's so, I don't know if rehearsed is the right word or scripted is the right word. I think both, seems a little bit of a different take for you.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I like, certainly within the world of comedy, I like to leave some room to improvise and mess around a bit. Because I think certainly with something like Mock the Week, I think all the best moments of the era of when I was on that show were amongst the panelists, and they were the improvised bits, because, you know, you do prepare a lot of jokes, you write a lot of jokes to go in with, but as soon as everyone starts just trying to do their jokes, it's not a fun experience at all. And I think we realized that quite quickly, that yes, do the prepared stuff and it's good to get what you've written in, but you've got to leave some room. You've got to actually listen to each other and have some fun, because otherwise it's just going to be people reading out jokes, which is not entertaining no matter how good the jokes are.
Mm-hmm. And also this is kind of what we're seeing with, I think, this sort of new golden age of stand-up that we're in right now as well, where you see comedians often leaving gaps in their sets to do more crowd work, or to, to run with, a few minutes of jokes maybe that aren't polished yet, and just kind of working them out, especially touring comedians who are working on the back of a special. Are you doing something similar?
Yeah, I mean, with this tour, it's called Ed Gamble Live because I wasn't quite sure what form the show was going to take when we booked everything in, because I've just done a massive tour of the UK last year called Hot Diggity Dog, and did that show again in Australia and New Zealand this year. And I was sort of at the point where I was like, I'd quite like to do some new stuff. But then I sort of came to the conclusion that, it's my first time doing a proper European tour. I'm doing America next year. I would quite like to give all those audiences the best stuff that I know works. So there will be a lot from that previous tour that people won't have seen over there, which is exciting. And then look, I'm always open to messing around a bit. I don't leave gaps for crowd work as such. I think that can be dangerous. You've got to feel it in the room, especially not when I'm coming to Amsterdam, where my last attempt at crowd work fell on very, very rocky ground.
Normally, when you're doing touring the UK, are you one of these guys who kind of gets to the end of a tour and you tear up the set and you start fresh?
Yeah, I think I will. I mean, the problem with this tour is I keep booking more dates in various countries across the world. So
it's kind of a luxury problem.
It's a luxury problem. We're it's not an issue as such. So I've yet to be able to tear up the show. So Europe and then America. I think after America, I've already started writing a new show, but I think it's the shredding of the scripts will happen next year at some point.
You had said that you kind of got into comedy because you had this obsession with comedy. Was kind of, I don't want to trivialize a complex like obsessive compulsive disorder or anything like that, but it sounds kind of like it's a bit of OCD, that, the way that you follow yourself down obsessions, and then maybe there's a pot of gold at the end, or maybe there isn't.
Yeah, I mean, look, undiagnosed with anything, we should say that. But there's something spicy going on for sure. But it's very much played into my career. So I've used those obsessions very well, I think. And that's what I say to any comedian. A lot of comedians say, what do you have any advice, like new comedians? And I say, just talk about what you love outside of comedy, because a lot of people in the industry really value comedians' experience in everything, including comedy. So,
what were your comedy interests then that you had as you were kind of growing up and then maturing into a comedian?
Well, the first comedy show I ever saw live was Steve Coogan doing a show called The Man Who Thinks He's It, which was a huge moment for me. I mean, I'd say a lot of my influences were sort of not what I do now. So a lot of sitcom, a lot of sketch shows and things. I think I thought I wanted to be an actor or a sort of comedy character act, but I think then you've also got to lean into where your skills are, and I think just waffling at the crowd as myself is probably up there with my skills. So
were these British or American sitcoms or British American comedians that you were following when you were younger?
To start with, definitely British, because the era that I was watching these things, it was stuff like Alan Partridge, and it was there was a huge, what felt like a huge British sitcom industry. Like if you Monday nights on BBC Two, you turn the TV on at 9, and there would be something at 9, 9:30, and 10, and it would be like a sketch show or a sitcom, and you'd watching. This was really exciting. There was a lot of new stuff coming through. I think as then I got older, moving more into like, 16, 17, 18, and then being at uni, it was a lot of American stuff. I mean, it was the UK office, and then it was the US office, and things like Arrested Development, and then especially things like 30 Rock and Parks and Recreation were like the biggest thing when I was at uni. That was the really exciting stuff. And I was doing a sketch show at uni as well. I was in a sketch group, and we were all absolutely obsessed with those things, to the extent I'd imagine they had more of an influence on us than they should have done.
And the people that you were working with at uni all have kind of, many of them have gone on, to quite heights in their own right.
Yeah, so I was in a sketch group with Nish Kumar, who is obviously an absolutely massive stand-up and is brilliant. And Tom Neenan, we used to work with very closely as well, who is an incredibly accomplished comedy writer. He's done a lot of incredible stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think we all had that obsession, and we all basically ignored our degrees to just meet up and write, on the whole, terrible sketches.
You mentioned Steve Coogan a couple of times, and watching Alan Partridge with my wife is just immensely fun to watch her watching it. She's actually a fan of yours as well.
Oh, nice.
Asked me to say hi to you, by the way.
Hello.
And she can't stand watching things that make her feel embarrassed.
Yeah.
Particularly for the people who are on camera, and just how red-faced she gets watching Alan Partridge is just, insane. It's hilarious.
I understand that. I know a lot of people who can't watch, cringe comedy. What I would say about characters like Alan Partridge and David Brent is I'm never embarrassed, because they're never embarrassed. It's like, it's awful and it's embarrassing what they're doing, but they have so little self-awareness a lot of the times that it sort of takes out that cringe factor for me. But I do understand a lot of people find they have to watch it from between their fingers. How
is it that you even wound up studying philosophy in the first place? Because you said, you were saying that you kind of avoided working in your degree, instead to pursue comedy. But philosophy seems maybe an interesting choice for a comedian. Even Mel Brooks in History of the World referred to himself as a stand-up philosopher.
Yeah, so I studied philosophy at school first of all. I did an A-level in philosophy because my school offered it, and I did find it just the most fascinating out of all of the subjects that were on offer. So it was always going to be what I wanted to study at uni. I wish I had focused slightly more, but on the other hand, I wouldn't necessarily have this career. And I have said in the past, I think to me, it does feel like the closest thing degree-wise, like of these classic degrees that you can do that is to stand-up comedy. It feels like what you're doing is formulating arguments, and quite often, yes, you're drawing from source texts and you're quoting things, but you do have to come up with your own arguments, and you do have to come up with why you think this, and then a conclusion. And I feel like, to me, that's like building a stand-up routine. It's coming at something from hopefully a different angle than everyone else, and laying out why you think that, and then having a punchline at the end, which, slightly less serious than some of the things I was talking about in philosophy. I still find it so fascinating. I still regularly buy philosophy books and then pop them in a pile next to my bed and think, one day I'm going to read those.
Would you say that you craft bits or you craft sets kind of in that same way of crafting an argument?
I think so. Sometimes when, my writing process is chaos. I don't have a particular way of doing it. It's just, it happens and I don't know how. But there's definitely times when I quite like doing routines where the initial argument or the initial thing you're saying at the top sounds absolutely insane. And then when you unpack it, you get to a conclusion where it actually seems logical, which feels
that's the brilliance of stand-up.
Yeah. Yeah. And that
right?
To me feels like quite an old school philosopher thing to do. to be like make a splashy top line and then an actual considered argument as to why they think that thing's true.
How does that for you compare to kind of other types of work that you're doing now? Like, when you wrote your book Glutton, it's very different art form. It's a very different way of kind of crafting your piece. So I'm curious how you actually approach that.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I loved writing it. I loved having something where I just had to be in one place and just attack it and spend a long time thinking about what I was writing. And, there's obviously no instant feedback. With the joy of stand-up is, I've got a gig tomorrow night. I'm just going to sit there an hour before the gig in the venue, scribble some stuff down and then say it. And you immediately know the way it comes out of your mouth and the way the audience react, if it's funny or not. With the book, you're not really getting that until you send it off to an editor, and that it might only happen every couple of months. So that's initially quite scary as a stand-up, and you're writing things that you wouldn't necessarily say out loud because you sort of, I certainly had to block out in my mind that people would read it. So I had to be like, well, I'm going to write this down. I'm going to put it in the thing, and then it's going to go in the book. But I can't think about people sitting down and reading this because some of it feels quite embarrassing. But I really enjoyed the process. I'd love to do another book when I get time, because I enjoyed the whole process of just sitting down and just digging my brain out. It was fun.
Does it make you feel uncomfortable to actually go kind of deep talking about yourself, or either in first person as a writer or during a situation like this?
Yeah, I think so. And I don't necessarily know why. I think a lot of it is maybe like imposter syndrome, that a lot of people have genuine problems and things to say about the world, whereas I honestly just want to talk about farts and stuff. And I think there's room for that in comedy. There's certainly now, I think the accepted truth is that the best comedy is honest, raw, and revealing comedy. But that was never the truth when I started doing it. There was room for everything. So I think I'm flying the flag for farts, I think.
The fart flag.
The fart flag.
You're throwing me all these curveballs, fart flags, professional wrestling. Yeah. It makes it a little bit difficult to keep it as a structured interview.
Hey, look, Zach, this is, you got to deal with it, man. This is it. It's not my job to keep this structured.
That's a good point. Fair point. Yeah, you were raised, your parents split up when you were around 4 years old.
Yes.
You were raised mostly by your mother, who is an NHS nurse, but, your father was always in the picture, right?
He was and is.
And so kind of where does your sensibility come from? Do you have more of your character traits come from your mother's side, your father's side? Is it kind of an even split?
I think I have a healthy mix. I think a lot of my qualities that are, I'm going to get this done. I just need to knuckle down and get on with it. And the work's important. That all comes from my dad. Whereas I think I have, maybe, not that my dad is not a very sensitive man, but I think some of my sensitivities and more of my emotional intelligence comes from my mum. I think it is a good mix. Yes, and I just
which one of the two is funnier?
Interesting. I think my mum is more knowingly funny. I think my dad is a very funny man and a very silly man, depending on what day you go over and see him. But I think sometimes he is quite funny without realizing it, and just he's sort of the thing that we share is that we can both be grumpy in a way that leaves people a lot of room to make fun of us, and then we get more grumpy and the funnier they find it. So I don't know whether that's self-aware or not, but yeah, I think I definitely share that with my dad.
Would your parents back when you were growing up have predicted that you would have taken a life where, you're basically living it out as a performer?
Yeah, I think so. I think I was always a little bit of a little show off and a funny kid. So I don't know if they would have been like, oh, he's going to be a stand-up or he's going to perform. Because I think now is much more of a time where people are like, stand-up's a job. I think I started doing stand-up at the point where that was starting to happen. But I think now people go, I'm going to be a stand-up comedian, whereas it just didn't feel like a possible job when I started. Also, I still don't think my dad understands that it is fully my job to be a stand-up. He's much happier now that he can turn on the television and I'm on it. Now, then he's like, right, this is a job. I understand that. You're doing that, and then you're doing this, and you're doing this. But when I was just doing comedy, he kept saying, so what's the career ladder? Do you do this for a bit and then you become a manager of a stand-up? He seemed to think there was like a hierarchy and a job path where eventually I become an agent. But I had to explain to him that's not true.
Is this also for you? When you launched your podcast with James Acaster, Off Menu, it was really kind of that podcast that shot you to a higher level of fame, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think so. I think that, a lot of people listen to it and a lot of people feel quite connected to it. So I'd say that's probably the thing whenever I meet people out and about or people want a photo, it's normally, I love Off Menu.
Is that something that kind of won over your dad as understanding that entertainment was more of a career?
No, because I don't think he's plugged into the podcast scene necessarily. I think it's things like Great British Menu, which you mentioned. It's things like Traitors Uncloaked, which is another thing that I do. Which he has told me. So Traitors Uncloaked is the after show for the Traitors in the UK. And he's told me he's watched Traitors Uncloaked because I'm on it, but he has not watched the Traitors. So it must be the most baffling television show / podcast that you could just talking about people he has no idea who they are, talking about a game that he doesn't know how it works. But I think it's like that sort of thing though legitimizes it in his mind a little bit more.
And Great British Menu for you getting into that in the first place was also, a sort of an unusual way in because you started off just as a guest judge on, if memory serves, a single episode.
Yeah, so it was the dessert final.
With the old cast.
With the old lot, with Oliver and Matthew and Rachel Koo. Which was really fun, but I think they were just, things were shifting around and people were leaving and they needed a new lot, and I think that they probably just thought I was quite a good vibe when I was there.
I mean, was it that single episode? Was that enough to, even win the offer of getting on that show in the first place? Yeah,
I don't think it was a case of, oh my God, this new guy came in and we're going to have to change everything. I think they were changing things anyway. And then I just happened to be there at the right time and they thought I'd be a good fit. So that was 4 years of that, which was incredible.
I mean, are you planning on staying around for that show for a while? Because it seems when I watch the show, it seems like you're enjoying yourself on it.
No, it's such a fun show. It's a really fun show. The team are incredible. And obviously the food is like absolutely insane. I'm just so delighted to be there. And it's really fun. I mean, look, my role on it is to take the piss a little bit and to enjoy the food, really. We've got Tom Kerridge there, who is just a brilliant judge, and all the chefs respect him. So all of his criticism comes quite easily to him, and the chefs take it into account. I think if I was sat there going, I didn't like the taste of it, they'd be like, come on, man, you're not a professional chef. So, but it's a lot of fun. It's really good.
Well, and that grumbly, I don't like the taste of it judging was kind of, I mean, it's been done. That was the first, set of seasons of that show was basically, more along the lines of quibbling than kind of what it's become over the last 4 years, I would say.
Yeah, I think these things have to change, right? Because it's been on for so many seasons. And, these things have to shift. They have to evolve. And, things, it's an entertainment format as well as a food format. So I think there's probably some people who think, why do you have to make the dishes look? Because when it started, it was like they would just make food. It would just be like the best duck breast they'd ever have. Or when Tom was on it, he was doing things like duck. He was doing pork. There was no theming of the dishes. There was no great fireworks or all of this stuff happening with the dishes, the presentation. But now it's become a bit more about that, and I think that's more dialing up the entertainment, and I love that. I love all that stuff.
I know your closest fans and a lot of people who follow you in the media kind of have a deeper understanding of where your love of food and your obsession with food comes from. for our audience, maybe they're not as aware of that. So where does this obsession with food come from?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know exactly where it comes from. It's certainly like, I love food and I totally get obsessed with it. I mean, I wrote about it in my book that I was, used to be way bigger and just a lot of binge eating. But now it's just become a genuine love. And I think as a kid as well, I would be one of those kids who genuinely ate anything. Like I was not a fussy kid, which I think is fairly rare. And I think I sort of took that as a matter of pride that all of my friends would be picking through their food or, barely eating anything. Whereas I've always been able to eat everything, Zach. I'm not leaving a morsel.
I mean, it also seems like with your international tour and the experience that you have, that it's almost a natural idea to put together essays of your food, of the food that you encounter on your travels.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, totally. I mean, I'll be making copious notes, of course. I'll be taking many, many photos of everything I eat, even if it's, me in a snack bar in Amsterdam at 2:00 in the morning. But yeah, I think we're going to some pretty cool places. So I need to start booking some tables, really.
What do your fans have to look forward to in the coming years? What can we expect to see from you?
Oh boy, I mean, touring this show through until next year, but plenty more off menu. I do a show on Radio X, which is also a podcast. I do The Traitors Uncloaked, which is a visualized podcast. It's just a TV show, but we're calling it a visualized podcast. So there's so many things going on. And then, it's a new stand-up show. There's that happening. We're doing Off Menu Live in London next year. If anyone wants to fly over from Amsterdam or Rotterdam and pop into the
Tell me a little bit more about that. What are you guys going to do?
So we've done it live before. We've toured the UK. We've done some shows in Montreal, and we do the podcast live. Essentially, we have a guest on and we ask them their dream menu. But the first half tends to be, I'm not quite sure what we're doing at these next shows, but the first half in the past has been we get our audience to email their dream menus to us, and then we go through them in the first half and essentially roast people in the audience for their terrible choices. So, and some of the choices are just so weird that they have to be said out loud. So we have some delightfully oddball listeners. So that's a lot of fun. This time round, we're doing 6 shows at the Royal Albert Hall, which is even mad to say out loud.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's blown my mind. We're doing a new thing we're doing called the tasting menus, which is we have old guests back on, and rather than them picking their dream menu, we give them the dream menu of another previous guest. So it's basically an opportunity to get, because the way we set the thing up is, come on and do your dream menu and then that's it. But there's people who the audience have loved so much, that we enjoyed talking to so much, that we are desperate to have them back on. So this is a new format to get people back on. And for these big shows at the Royal Albert Hall, we thought, let's get old guests back on. And those are not been revealed yet, but we're going to have some very big hitters.
What's to date the most absurd dream menu item that you can remember?
Oh boy. I mean, we talk a lot about this, but the first time we knew that this was part of our podcast essentially was very, very early on, because very early on it was like people picking genuinely nice stuff or interesting stuff, or, and there was, fancy stuff, and there was, fast food, and that was exciting, the breadth of it. But we had the comedian Joel Dommett on, and his menu was so bad that everyone basically trolled him for the next 5 years and continued to troll him. And he picked for his dream drink a protein shake. So I think that immediately just sticks in my mind as one of the worst things we've ever had.
Your dream drink is Guinness?
It has been Guinness. I mean, actually, I believe I picked Guinness for the water course. When me and James do our dream menus, as we do every 100 episodes, we try and hack our own format. Even though it's our format, we could just do what we want. We do try and hack it. So still or sparkling water, I picked Guinness, and I still would. I mean, I adore Guinness. And then I picked some sort of, fancy wine for later on.
I mean, I don't know how many people saw your episode of Drunk History, the British version of Drunk History, but I'm pretty sure that Guinness isn't your only dream drink based on that episode alone.
Those are not dream drinks for me. That was an attempt to get drunk so I could tell the story. It was
more than an attempt, I think. It was if memory serves, 11 double gin and tonics.
Yeah, something like that.
And
6,
8 double vodka and Red Bulls.
Yeah, sugar-free Red Bull. Yeah, I don't remember a huge amount about that day. All I remember is I was filming and they kept like waking me up basically to be like, you need to finish this story. Like, we still got to film it. And then the next thing I remember, I just woke up and all the cameras had gone. I was just asleep on the sofa. And I could hear Nish Kumar was recording his episode in the next room. So I like got up and snuck in. I was like, shh. That's how I snuck in doing that. And they went, you've got to be quiet, Ed, we're filming. Go and sit in there.
You had said that you had the stated goal of breaking the record for blood alcohol level of a guest on that program.
Well, this is my problem, Zach. This is the same problems I have with everything. Why do I have to go get so invested in something? Why do I have to go full tilt at everything I do?
Did you accomplish your goal is what I'd want to know. Did you beat the record, and has anybody beaten it,
I don't
since?
know. I mean, that show is not going still. So, I've got a good chance of being up there in the league table, certainly. I mean, there were people like Chris Ramsey, I think, drank something like 17 bottles of lager or something. I couldn't do it with lager. I'd be so full.
Right.
That show is not going, and it's probably a good thing because I think someone would have died.
The alcohol intake, is this, are you normally a big drinker, or is this, not a normal thing for you?
Not normally 11 double gin and tonics and 8 double vodka Red Bulls. No. No, I still drink alcohol. I still enjoy alcohol, but it's way less now because it's a very boring thing to say. But as I get older, it affects me way more the next day, and I have more stuff to do the next day now. When you're a comic starting out and it's gigs in the evening and then the days are relatively free, that's great. That's fantastic. You can afford to sleep in. But now with age and then also busyness, it's more occasional for me now.
Oh, and how much worse are the hangovers now compared to like 10 years ago, right?
But when everyone said that to me, I was like, oh, well, yeah, well, you mean the headaches are really bad or you feel sick or something and they're worse in that way. That's not true. It's mental health stuff. The hangovers are bad because you feel like the end of the world is coming, and that's not something I can deal with.
I know also there's kind of a push among some stand-up comedians also when they get to kind of your level or, the level where they're doing a special, that they're avoiding day drinking. They're avoiding going out after shows. I was listening to a podcast with Eliza Schlesinger. I sound like I'm drunk now. And she was saying, that she just kind of felt like she owed it to the fans, that the fans paid their money to see a good show. She should be at her peak, as opposed to, at the Comedy Store with a beer in her hand while people are just watching her drink, basically.
Yeah. And I think that it probably differs comic to comic. I do agree with her. That certainly, I mean, I'll have a drink after a show. Me and my tour manager 2 tours ago said, we're limiting ourselves. If we've got a show the next day, we can only have 3 drinks maximum after the show. Then the next tour, as we're both similar ages, the next tour it became 2. Then the next tour it became 1. And then I think this next time is basically going to be no drinks. Once you've realized as a comic how to have that adrenaline and then just go to bed, that is a skill. That's a pretty good skill to unlock, and I think I have that now. Whereas before it would always be, what a great show, let's go and have a drink and have a chat and relax. But now I think I can pretty much power down straight away. But there are comics who can drink, and there are comics who it's part of their brand, and I don't mind watching them on stage with a beer and holding court. That feels like part of their thing.
Who are the comics that you most enjoy watching these days? I
mean, there's loads of guys in the UK. I mean, a lot of my friends. I must say, but mainly because we all know each other. James Acast's new show is incredible. Nish Kumar is like a machine. I don't know how he turns over this much incredible material. I saw him, we gigged together the other night, and he's just finished a tour, and then he did pretty much a perfect 25 minutes of new material. So he's incredible as well. My support acts in the past, so these are probably the comics I've seen the most. Chloe Petts is amazing. Anya Magliano is amazing. Stuart Laws, Sakisa, Sam Lake. I love Sam Campbell. You know, there's so many people who are over in the UK at the moment who are really top tier. And obviously all the Americans, there's a lot of great Americans out there.
Okay. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you also harkens back to food on the tours as well. One of the places you're going to be performing at is the Den in the Wicker Park neighborhood of Chicago, my hometown. I'm very curious if you're looking forward to any specific Chicago foods.
I mean, I've not been to Chicago before, and I'm genuinely buzzing to be in Chicago. I mean, there's the foods that everyone's like, you got to go and get deep dish pizza and all of this stuff. But do I, as a Chicago native, do I need to go and get deep dish pizza? Because to me, it looks like cake with cheese on top.
It's a friend of mine from New York describes it as just being a hot mess of cheese served in a pie tin. I have a soft spot in my heart for it, though that spot is probably hardened with cholesterol by now.
Yeah,
but
sure.
I think it's worth a try and not offensive if you don't like it. I would put it that way.
Yes. Okay. Well, the way you said your friend described it, I take it they were saying that in a bad way, a negative thing, a hot mess of cheese in a pie tin. To me, that was like, well, I'm definitely getting that then.
Yes.
That sounds ideal.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, of the other locations on your tour, because, you're coming to the Netherlands from Portugal, you're leaving from here. I think you're going to Norway, tour dates in Germany, a number of other countries as well, and across the US. Are there other specific foodie things that you're looking to do on this tour?
Well, we're going to Copenhagen, which, I mean, I've been there a lot and I've eaten a lot there, so I'm looking forward to going back there. I don't think we're going to really have time for like fancy sit down 5-hour-long Michelin star feasts, which is probably quite a good thing. But in Copenhagen, there's a bakery called Hart Bakery, which does the best sausage roll I've ever had in my life. And then other places I've not been. Again, I'm just going to wait for suggestions. I want to get the things that everyone should be getting, including in Chicago, a hot mess of cheese in a pie tin.
I'm just curious, where do you stand on the comedy festival in Riyadh? It's been something that's been quite controversial among stand-up comedians. This festival in Saudi Arabia bringing so many people, top comedy professionals out there. Some questions, with regard to, whether or not it's ethical to perform there. I'm just wondering where you stand on that.
What I'd wish is I wish the people who did it would just admit why they did it, which is for the giant paycheck. And we all know why they did it. But I think a lot of them are skirting around the issue and saying they just wanted to finally bring stand-up comedy to the people of Saudi Arabia. They've never mentioned that in the past. That's never been a goal of theirs. And in fact, the only people who did admit that it was for money, the festival cancelled their appearances. So,
right.
Look, I wouldn't do it. It's certainly, it's potentially affected my opinion of those comedians. But, who am I to say that? I was not offered a place at Riyadh Comedy Festival, if that's what you're wondering.
I was a little bit wondering if you were offered a spot, and I'm wondering where kind of do you draw the line at what's ethical and what's not ethical.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's obviously a tricky discussion. I would say the line is drawn pretty much way before performing in Saudi Arabia, I've got to say, and certainly being directly paid by the Saudi Arabian royal family and entertainment commission, I think I think that's my major issue with it. That is money just directly coming from them. So yeah, that line is pretty heavily drawn, and I'd like to say I would have turned it down were I offered, but I wasn't offered. Am I salty about that? It's always tricky to not be in the mix for a gig.
Is your wife joining you at all on the tour?
She's popping over to a couple of them, I think. Yeah. I mean, she doesn't tend to come too often on tour because even though it sounds like what a wonderful holiday and what a wonderful trip it would be to come to all those European destinations, a lot of it will be me staring at a wall before a show, being like, God, I hope they like me in this country. I hope I'm funny in Norway. I hope people sit in the front row in Amsterdam and they don't stare me out.
Any chance of seeing a tag team wrestling match with you and Charlie, your wife?
You know, we have talked about it. We have been talking to a wrestling company here about maybe doing that. It's about finding the time because I need to learn everything bit by bit. But no, that is genuinely something we've been discussing, Zach. So
I'm both awestruck and terrified for your future.
Who knows? And who knows what I'll be into the next time we speak.
All right. Well, Ed Gamble, you're coming to Amsterdam and Rotterdam at Club Haug on November 15th, Amsterdam at Boom Chicago on November 16th. Tickets for the matinee Amsterdam show are still available. You can find out more about that both at the Boom Chicago website and at edgamble.co.uk. And Ed, where else can people find out more about you and give you a follow?
Pretty much Instagram is the only place that I'm on now. So it's at Ed Gamble Comedy on Instagram. And it's a lot of clips of podcasts. If you like that sort of thing, clips of podcasts and an occasional story about my cat, you're gonna love that place.
I'm kind of hoping you go a little bit down the cringe TikTok route, but maybe that's as your wrestling career develops, perhaps.
I'm not touching TikTok, man. It's 40 next year. I'm going nowhere near TikTok.
All right, Ed, thank you so much for taking the time out and joining us, and hope to see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you so much, Zach.
Dam Yankee is produced in partnership with NL Times, the top choice for English language news from the Netherlands. Founded nearly 15 years ago, NL Times is now the #1 site for information about this country, featuring more news stories every day of the week than any other website. Keep tabs on the latest top stories, features, and breaking news from across the entire country, including the 3 big cities, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and The Hague. So visit nltimes.nl now and find out what millions of people are reading about the Netherlands. Dam Yankee is an NL Times podcast. The show is created by me and Peach Rizzo. This episode was produced and edited by Marcus Engel and produced by Eve Papakadze.